Hey there, welcome back to another week of Leading from the Middle. I'm Helen Young-McLaughlin, and I'm super excited because this year I've taken an opportunity to get to know 23 different leaders and learn a little bit more from their perspective about what they believe companies can do to transform their middle managers into their most valuable asset. If you've been tuning in, you know this is a passion project of mine. And this week, I'm so excited to introduce you to Eddie Turner. Eddie is a top motivational speaker. He is a leadership development expert, and he's an executive coach. And by the way, I think I'm probably forgetting about 10 other things that he does. But welcome, Eddie. Thanks so much for being here today.
Helen, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here on Leading from the Middle.
Yes, right from the middle. So, Eddie, will you share with our listeners a little bit about the work that you do and maybe even have done in the past that's going to be relevant to the topic that we're talking about today?
I work with leaders to accelerate performance and drive impact. And I define leader as anyone in an organization who holds a formal position of authority that says they're a leader, or those who have informal authority. They don't have a leadership title, but they're the ones that are always taking the lead. They don't wait to be told what to do. They get things done. And that's why I love the title of your show. You can lead from anywhere in an organization, including the middle.
That is so true. Thank you, Eddie. And so at some point in your career, go back and you were just getting into management. Do you remember that part? Leading teams or leading, a project or what have you. Do you remember what it was like when you just first started out?
Absolutely. And that's where I formed my viewpoint on leadership, because throughout the corporate career I never inside of a formal corporation had a formal leadership title. I had a senior in front of my name essentially, but my formal experience in leadership was far different from my informal. And I would say that my effectiveness throughout my career was always based on my informal authority. And I remember during the time at General Electric when I was put through a program called, actually, I don't remember the title of it, but it was about influencing.
Yeah.
Learning the power of influencing. That's where I really realized what I'd been doing, but I didn't have a language for it. And so the power of influencing is the strategic key for informal authority.
Love that. And so we're gonna slide into the question that I've been asking everybody that I'm interviewing, which is, what is one thing that companies really need to pay closer attention to when it comes to developing their managers?
Number one, understanding that they need to develop them. In many organizations, development is completely ignored. I cited a statistic that I learned from Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner in their landmark book, The Leadership Circle, that says the average leader works in a leadership position for 10 years before they receive training on how to lead. So, number one, understanding that you need to develop people. Don't just take the smartest person, the most talented person, throw them into this role where they're expected to now lead. Understand that there's an evolution that needs to take place. And that we need to invest in this person with new knowledge, with new skills. Marshall Goldsmith wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And oftentimes we expect that because they are now put in this new role, they're going to perform the same way. And that is not the case.
It's a different set of skills, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so do we understand the need to identify the skills for success? Do they have the skills? And then what are the competencies we need to wrap around skills? It's one thing to know how to speak, but I need to speak differently in this new role, right? There's a new understanding of what it means to be an effective presenter. When I was one-on-one with my manager, my team, but now I'm being called on to now speak more in front of other teams, maybe leadership, right? So those skills need new competencies as I'm developing. And that's what organizations must do. Identify what that looks like. Or am I a part of an organization that says, we want good leaders, or we have this promotion to success, but it hasn't really been defined.
And it's interesting to me sometimes when those individual contributors are identified. Oftentimes it's, we have a need right now. We have to move them up into a manager role. And there's not really a lot of conversation about what to expect in that role. Have you seen that in the work you've done as well?
Absolutely. Sometimes they refer to it as baptism by fire. You're just
There you go. Right.
Again, no training, no skills. You're thrown in, you're expected to perform. And those who are already leaders, although they didn't have the formal title, they rise to the level. They do. They execute, and they do it valiantly.
Yeah.
But now what happens? Now you're in this role. You're no longer the individual contributor. You're not senior management. You are in the middle. What do you do? So now what organizations must do, but what I tell the leaders I coach is don't wait for the organization. Invest in yourself. Think about the horizon of where you're working. Think about the industry that you're in. What do you want?
Right.
Based on what you want, take ownership of your career and begin to think about how you develop yourself. And then perhaps one day the company will catch up and start to invest in you. But just like most people have some type of an education, either high school education, you've got your college education, you invested in yourself then. Don't stop now. Invest in yourself, identify where those skills are so that you can grow yourself, develop right where you are to get to where you want to be.
I think that's such an important thing for our listeners to kind of pause and rewind if you want to, right? Invest in yourself. And I will say that a couple of the people that I have interviewed, this is a theme where they've said, it's great. We want the organizations to hear. It's really important to stop and think about how are you investing in your mid-level managers and giving them the support they need. And in the same, sentence, kind of saying, all right, what is it that you can do? And I remember, I'm going to share this. I haven't shared this before, but I remember for me, I was feeling like I was just figuring everything out as I went, which to some degree was fine, but it just wasn't, my thirst and craving for learning and development was not happening. So I decided, take the leap, invest in myself. And guess what? I've never been more fulfilled, thrilled with what I learned. I use those skills all the time now. And it's actually what propelled me into wanting to get my coaching certification.
Beautiful.
So I don't know if you have an example around that too, but I think if people hear that and can just dial in, like, what are some of the things that you can do as an individual to help, develop yourself, to give you that, I'll call it a dopamine boost around, what's next for you, and not just rely solely on the organization.
Well, there's a lot there that you gave me. Let me start with the last thing you said, the dopamine boost. The satisfaction that is released in our brain that comes from achievement. And that's one of the reasons I say invest in yourself. There's a deep satisfaction you get when you've paid for it, you've gone through it, you've made the investment. Nobody did it for you. There's something really to be said for that.
There is.
So it starts with, do I know what I want? And then am I willing to design the steps it takes to get there? Fancy word for that is goals. So many times we've stopped setting goals. Do I set goals for myself? So where I start with my clients, let's set some goals. To get goals, you have to have habits. And in his great book, Jim Cleary, I believe his name is, wrote the book Atomic Habits.
Yes.
We don't rise to the level of our goals. We rise to the level of our systems. What systems did you put in place to achieve your goals? And so I challenge leaders to be that getting new education, being a continuous learner. And there's so many ways to do that today. If you don't have a lot of financial resources, there's a myriad of the top universities in the world that give away free education.
Yes.
And they'll give you a nice certificate afterwards now too. Right? LinkedIn Learning, podcasts, books at libraries, those funny places we don't go to anymore in so many cases, but we should support our libraries.
Right.
You don't have to pay for it. So low cost, no cost options to then all the way up to scale. If you're in the middle, can you invest at the local university and take some classes? Even if it's not toward a degree, so many executive education programs are available now. And that is, to me, one of the biggest investments, especially the higher up you've gone in your career, you can make. I personally set aside a certain percentage of my income every year.
To invest in yourself.
Yes. So I encourage the folks I'm working with at all ages, at all career levels, what does that look like for you? Am I going to say, hey, I'm putting aside X dollars? Then now what those dollars are, what programs align to that? And then you do the
And
same.
I think you can do dollars or time.
Well, it requires both, right? So
right.
In this case, I'm saying when we're not on the low cost options I mentioned already,
right,
where it's just the investment of time, here I'm talking about the investment of the dollars.
Yeah.
And so once you've allocated what those dollars are, now you know where to look. And that's why that part becomes important. Because based on that, I'll know that I can do this executive education at this university, or I'll know I can go to this conference, or I'll know that I can do whatever that looks like. So setting aside, what does that dollar figure look like? And then you can investigate what opportunities map to that. Therefore, when I'm saying, quoting James Cleary, that you have the ability to rise not to the level of your goals, but to the systems.
Absolutely. Well, this is so good. So let's pull this all together for the listeners, because I could keep talking to you. We might need a part 2. We have people that are listening in who are managers themselves. And I think it's really clear, consider investing in yourself. And what that looks like for each individual is different. And you start with a plan. And then for companies, I would love to hear from you if you wanted to bottom line the number one thing that they should consider when it comes to developing their managers.
I go back to what I opened with, believing in the need to develop them.
It kind of starts with just taking that pause and saying, okay, what is it that we need? And I, as a coach, drop into a question, which is, what is it that we're currently doing as a company to support our middle managers?
Yeah, because you have an inverted pyramid, right? Most of the money that gets spent is always at the top. And as you go down in the organization, there's less that's being spent. We don't develop an organization, not because in some cases we don't think it's important. In some cases, we really don't. Right. We don't understand the importance of development. But in other cases, it's the costs. And that's why from the moment I've entered the HR space, I've seen that when the times get thin, money gets tough in an organization, it's the first thing we cut. We cut all learning, we cut all training, as if now people who are incompetent, not trained, are going to perform well.
Right.
More of them. How can I do more when I don't know more?
That's a really good point. And I'll say I have this program, Eddie, it's called the Leverage Academy, where I bring in 10 to 15 managers at a time for 6 months to help them build skills. And a company that I was working with saved them over $650,000.
Outstanding.
Because people were ready to resign. And as a part of feeling a part of this program and getting developed and building the skills and the confidence, they stayed. And this is what I think companies need to realize, is that retaining top talent requires an investment. Otherwise, our money's just flying out the window, and we don't even really realize that it's, what the contributing factors are. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that's a really important component. Hey, Eddie, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about you, can you share where they can reach you?
Absolutely. I'm Eddie Turner. EDDIE is how I spell mine. Eddie Turner. If you type that into the search engine, I'm on all the social media stations. The best one, obviously, is going to be LinkedIn. My personal website is askeddieturner.com. But I work for Linkage, a SHRM company. So you'll find me on shrm.org, SHRM.org.
Thank you so much for being here today. It's been a thrill to talk to you, and I'm sure the listeners are going to feel the same. And for those who are continually tuning in each week, we'll have more next week. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in to another interview of Leading from the Middle. I'm really looking forward to hearing some feedback from you. I want to connect with you. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Helen Young-McLaughlin. Just hit that hyphen in between Young and McLaughlin, or you can go to my website at helenyoungcoaching.com. Thanks again and have a great day.